So, what was your first like foray into like comic books? Like, what was your like? How did you learn about comics?
Sure. So growing up, my brother and I spent the majority of our formative years in our parents' kind of like a mom and pop convenience store. We just grew up there. We had the old spinner rack that they sold, 25-cent comics on. And it was either, there weren't many comics that were on the spinner rack, but it was either between the Barbie comics from Mattel or X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really my first introduction to comic books. But of course, the 90s X-Men the Animated Series
Mm-hmm.
was huge and formative. So between those two things, that was kind of my introduction. And then later in life, I think in college is when I really came into learning how vast and broad the comic book industry was.
And when you were like going through, were you more of a fan of Barbie or were you more a fan of X Men or both?
Definitely the X-Men. Although I read Barbie because when you only have two options, you will take it gladly.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely, especially in learning about the animated series, which I
Mm-hmm.
loved, really was drawn more towards the X-Men.
Who were some of like what do you remember which issue or anything you kind of stood out? Is there a cover to you that kind of
No, not really, because honestly, we wouldn't get. It would be one of those things where we would not get regular issues on a monthly basis. So
Mm-hmm.
I was really having trouble following that. Oh, this is a recurring story. I know I would pick up an issue here or an issue there and be like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know why I don't know what's happening. So it really was more of the animated series that kind of said, oh, there's a greater story and
Yeah.
a through line through this that makes sense. I like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because as a kid I grew up watching that too, and it
Mhm.
helped me become a fan of the X Men and Spider
Mhm.
Man and Batman and all these great characters that we know and love.
Absolutely. Yeah.